As an author, I am paying attention to everything that's happening in the world around me, and I'm logging it in the back of my brain to eventually write into a story. I might not need it right this very second, but eventually I might have to describe something, or I might have an idea based around something I'm experiencing right now. So I'm actively paying attention to every little mundane tiny thing and every great big giant big thing in my life so that I can log it somewhere in my brain to use later on. And I'm talking very specific details. I am listening to the sounds of things and how they change with different distances. I am listening to what is going on and how people are reacting. I'm watching for people's reactions to things. I'm figuring out how things feel against my skin and how it feels in different temperatures and how things react in different ways. I'm watching every little thing. Now, if you're a new writer, a great way to be managing this and to be working through this is to actually make sure that you're keeping a running list. And this could be a note on your phone, this could be in a journal, it could be wherever, but you want to make sure that you're actively taking this participation role in creating your stories way before you're ever writing your stories. In fact, you can, if you are on location and you don't have the time to write it or type it, you can record a voice message for yourself. You could even pull up the phone camera that you've got within your phone and you can record whatever it is. You can reach around and point to the things and whisper into it or say quietly into it so other people aren't disturbed by you or you're not embarrassed by doing this. You can point out the things that you're noticing, colors, the scents, the way that people are reacting to things. You can talk about your own personal experience with it. And if you can't do it right in the moment, maybe try doing it after the fact. So once you get home, you can then take note of this. So let's just say you come across something while you're driving and you can't do it right that second. As soon as you get out of the car, even before you unbuckle your seatbelt, pull out your phone and record those notes or write it down so that you remember what you were experiencing, what you were feeling, what it was like, what the day was like. Write everything down. The more you start to take notes on things, the easier it's going to get for you to note these things and then to remember and recall them later. So let's just talk about this practically. If you are going somewhere out of your house, let's say to a sunflower farm, you are going to note everything that is going on. You're going to note the colors of the sunflowers, the texture of the seeds. You're going to note the different stages of the flowers because they will be in different stages. So some will be fully bloomed and ready to go and very bright yellow. Some are going to have red colors and have shorter petals. You're going to feel and see and experience different things based on how it goes. Now, when you're there, don't just pay attention to like the sunflowers. Watch the ground. What's going on? Are there roots sticking out of the ground? Are we seeing things that they have mowed down but they missed parts of them? Are there rocks? Are there tree branches? What's going on? How are you feeling? How are you walking through this farm of sunflowers? Note the sun, note the sky, note the clouds, note the people. If there are going to be a lot of other people there, pay attention to their reactions and how they're interacting with these different flowers. Now let's step outside of that. Let's say you're in a construction zone and you are paying attention to what's going on around you, assuming you're not the one driving through a construction zone. Always keep your eyes on the road if that's the situation. But if you have the opportunity to look around, note the machinery, note how it works, note when it gets creaky and it's hard for it to move and hard for it to dig things up. Pay attention to how much mud is caked on the wheels and pay attention to how many men are standing there working and how many are managing the signs and what's going on, who's congregating with who and how are they having conversations. Do they look happy? Do they look exhausted? Are they covered in dirt from people passing by on the road? Pay attention to every little detail and note all of it. You want to make sure that you are actively paying attention. But now let's step outside of this. Let's go into a restaurant. Look around. What are the sights? What are the smells? What are the sounds? What are people doing? How are they reacting and interacting with each other? Do you have a really good waitress who is on top of everything and is always delivering drinks when you need them and you're ready to go with your food early and you're not waiting a long time? What happens if you have a waiter who is not on top of their game? How does that impact the tables around you? How does that impact you? How hungry did you get waiting for them to bring the rolls to your table? Figure out all of these things. Listen to the clinking sounds of forks against plates. Listen to the sound that the glasses make, depending on if they are plastic glasses or actual glass glasses. You're listening and you're noting all of these things in just everyday situations around you. Now, let's step back into your personal life. Once you're at home, I want you to pay attention to the way that the toothpaste comes out of the tube, the way that you're brushing your teeth. I want you to pay attention to the bristles on your toothbrush and note them over a period of time, from brand new to, oh, it's time to get a new toothbrush. How do they move? How do they bend? How do they change? What is different in the stages of your life? Pay attention to the daily, but also the grand scale of things and the life of things. What can you be paying attention to? If you go to your kitchen and you put a mug under that faucet, how does the sound change when it's closer to the spigot and when it's further away from the spigot? Are you noting these things? Are you paying attention to this? Because all of these things could be something that comes up in your story later on. And yes, there are some things you don't need to necessarily remember right this second, because you can relive them. With the example of the mug under the faucet, you can, if you need to describe how this sounds or how this interacts or how heavy the mug gets with the water and whatever, you can go to your kitchen and you can do that right now. But there are some situations, like when you're on vacation and you're in a big city and you're not from a big city and you're not going back to a big city anytime soon. What do you need to know? You need to be watching those people and listening to those sounds and noting everything that you come into contact with. Figure out how the metal feels under your hands as you're walking along and there's a railing for a construction zone just blocking things off and you're just kind of running your hand along that. How does that feel? Did you feel the paint flicking? Do you feel the gum under it? Did you run your hand over that? What is that like? What does the concrete feel like under your feet? Pay attention to things that are specific to that area. So what does New York City sound like? How is it different than Philadelphia? You need to be paying attention to these differences and the things that are specific to those locations. A construction zone sounds are going to be different in one area doing one type of construction, like building a building, than tearing up dirt to, redo an underground system. It's going to be different sounds, it's going to be different machinery, it's going to be different actions. So pay attention in these settings that you're only going to experience on a non-daily level. I want you to pay attention to the everyday things too, because that is what really shows off a good author. Making those everyday mundane things really come to life and be relatable in your stories. But you're also going to need to strongly pay attention, even more so than on the daily level, to those things that you can only experience every once in a while. So what does the ocean sound like? What does the sand feel like under your feet? Is it rocky? Is it gravelly? Is it sandy? Is it moving? Is it wet and it's falling out from under your feet? Or is it dry and packed? Is it loose and kicking up every time you walk? Pay attention to these things in the specific locations, because not every beach is going to be the same. Now, if you have something in your story that comes up that is not necessarily something that you can get to now, or you haven't looked into this thing but you need to write it now, there are a couple of things that you can be doing. If you cannot go to the ocean and you need to talk about the ocean, go to YouTube. People will have videos at the ocean you need to be looking at. If you can't get to New York City, but you have a story based in New York City and you need to know, don't rely on TV episodes. You're going to go to YouTube, watch people's New York City tours, or look at specific locations. You can look up different things in the city. So if you need to know what a building looks like, or if you need to know what it looks like inside of a jewelry store there, or if you need to know different things, you can do research on the internet. You can experience it secondhand. You can watch videos, you can look at photos, you can read blogs, and you can also find people who can consult with you as well. So ask people, get your questions answered by professionals or people who live in those areas or know the things that you need to know. If you cannot do it firsthand, get it secondhand. There are a lot of ways that you can learn and research through the internet. It's amazing. I do it all the time. And this is something that you can be paying attention to. So let's say you've got a fight scene that you're writing and you need to know what's going on. So you're looking up the different moves that they can be doing, how they're interacting with people, but also the sounds. Also the way that they are engaging with each other. So let's just say we've got some people colliding here. What are the sounds? What do you hear when people are colliding in different ways? A punch is going to be different than an elbow, right? We're going to have those different interactions. A kick is going to be different than hitting someone. So you need to be listening in these videos. So when I do my fight scenes, I do look things up and I pay attention to how they move and how they're moving their bodies and how they're interacting with each other, the pauses in between the different moves, and I'm listening to the sights and the sounds. I can't get all of the senses in there because it's a video, but there's so much that you can see, and then you can pay attention to the other things and build that world building as well. So if there's an area that doesn't quite have enough information, use your world building elsewhere. Reactions from people in your audience. You're going to do how other people are engaging with them. Are they moving away? Are they coming closer to those people? Like, what's going on with the others? So if you don't have the world building that you exactly need for, let's say, a fight scene in the city, maybe you're going to look up those moves and you're going to look up some of the things that go with it, but also heavily rely on how people are engaging with that fight scene in that city. So there's a lot of things that you can look up for world building in terms of people, in terms of the environment that they're in terms of the actual location that they're in. Implement all these things into it. But strategically pay attention to how people get mad at each other in your life. So let's say we're at Christmas celebrating and your family's fighting. What's happening? Tell me what's happening. Show me what's happening. Pay attention to whose face gets red and whose face gets white, who gets quiet and who gets aggressive, who gets in someone's face and who retreats. We want all of these little details. When something good is happening, let's say there's a baby shower and everyone's excited and we're opening presents and people are excited about it and just we're playing games and all the things. What are people doing and how are they reacting? Watch their faces, watch their body language, watch how they're interacting with people, and take note. Every holiday, every time you're having a family event, every time you're going on location, every time you're doing something in your house, note the little things and the big things. Write them down. As soon as you start writing things down, you're going to get better and better and better at it. So eventually, you're not necessarily going to have to. You will be able to log them in your brain and just remember them when the time comes. But it's always a good practice, and it will help build up your writing abilities to make lists and to write things down and find comparisons and draw those comparisons as you are writing. Figure out your comparisons. So how is your experience in the city similar and different to your experience in a small town? What are those crossovers and what things are completely different? Point those things out for yourself. Just write a little paragraph essay for yourself on the differences and the similarities. It's going to make you a better, stronger, and more capable writer. And definitely make sure you're noting everything that goes down in your life. Again, you can write this in a notebook. You can write it on a note app on your phone. You can write it in a Word doc or a Google doc. You can record it as a voice memo, or you can record it on your phone as a video so that you can reference it later on. And if you know you're going to be writing about a specific location or event and you have access to it, I do recommend recording it so you can go back and watch it and note little things. For example, I was just at a sunflower farm recently, and I was recording myself running around and doing all these things. I had no idea there were so many butterflies flying over my head. I knew there were grasshoppers. I knew there were giant grasshoppers flying everywhere, but it wasn't until I went back and watched that video that I saw how many monarch butterflies were just flying over me the entire time. So you can do this as well. Video everything you can, go back and watch it, look for things, track things, and take note of them. For more information on how you can grow as a writer, make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell. We are coming back every single week with more writer tips and industry tips to help you grow as an aspiring or as a new author or even as an established author. I've been in the game for a really long time now, multi-time bestseller, and I have so many tips to share with you. So drop your questions on how to do this better or more effectively below. Drop your topic ideas for things you want to learn more about from a multi-time bestseller, and make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell. I'll see you in the next video as we continue to help you level up your writing game.